That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. My hair gets progressively more wild with these lockdowns that we're in, but welcome to another episode. I have with me Dan today. How are you, Dan?
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty good. I mean, I'm getting closer to potentially one of those lockdowns that you're coming out of, I think. It's getting a bit wild in my neck of the woods at the minute, but...
Yeah, just come out on Monday, so I do have to get down to a hairdresser at some point, but that will be in the very near future. But in other exciting news, very happy news, we do have a win to discuss. It feels like it was a little while ago now. I was just saying to you beforehand, it feels a bit foggy to cast our minds back to 2 weekends ago before the international break with a very positive result against Middlesbrough. It is sort of funny. We were talking on the last episode, I think, about the fact that our last win in the championship, or one of our last wins in the championship, I should say, came against Warnock's Middlesbrough in his first game in charge, and we got them again this time. So what did you make of the game?
Yeah, look, I thought it was a really good game. I thought we played really well, but I think we were probably lucky. I think Borough had a couple of decent, really good chances that, if not for Ingram, we possibly may not have won it. I was getting fearful. It seemed like it was going to be one of those games that might just slip away in the last 10 minutes. But it sort of went the other way. We actually managed to take it in the last little section of the game, but it was feeling like a game was going to get away for a while, for long periods. But I think a nice surprise. We talked about whether McCann would change the formation when we were last speaking, and lo and behold, he did against what we expected. I think I said it would be good to see it, but I don't think he'll do it, and he did, and credit to him.
I couldn't believe it. I saw the three centre backs on the pitch. You kind of go, oh, hang on, what's happening? It was great.
Yeah. So, but yeah, got the win. Lucky first one in a sense. A cracking hit, but to hit the post and then come back and hit the keeper in the back of the head and bounce in is a bit wild. It's probably one of the weirdest own goals I've ever seen.
Yeah, but he did it against someone else, like not the same sort of goal, but he did have another one where he hit the post and it came back in off the keeper. Was it last minute goal against Barnsley or someone?
Yeah. I
do. He got us an equaliser. I think it was like a last minute equaliser, and it was one of his first goals. It would have been, I think, might have been even his first home goal. And it was sort of, do you give it? You can't really give it to him because it's come back in off the keeper. But yeah, making a habit of it. Yeah,
I don't really care how we get him at the minute. If any goals we can get, we'll take.
And look, we were saying in the last episode how unlucky we've been, and we just need a bit of luck to go our way, and it's that sort of not fluky, but like odd sort of lucky goal that falls our way, and all of a sudden, look how we responded.
Yeah, and I think heading into that international break, perfect time to nab that first win. It would have been a really long 2 weeks had we not picked up those points, I think. But what was the 4 points or whatever just before the break? So a pretty good sort of lead into that. You get 2 weeks of real positivity around the club, potentially some returns again soon with some players from injury, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Honeyman should be back now. I don't actually even know if we've got any injuries, because I think Huddleston's fit, Honeyman's fit.
Yeah.
Maybe is it Longman was potentially out? I can't quite remember, but I think most of the players should now be fit.
Yeah, so you bring in all those extra players back into the squad. Everyone's fit. We've got some points starting to, it's starting to turn in our favour a little bit, without getting too carried away off of one victory, of course. But
we were saying similar. Eves getting that last minute goal against Blackpool felt like a turning point in itself. It felt like you're getting a win without the 3 points, and we've shown it. We've come through in this Borough game with the win, and you're right. Like, for large portions of the game, I did feel like this was just gonna be another one of those games where we looked good in patches, and then threw it away. They had that chance where they were through on goal, and I can't remember the player who really should have at least got his chance on target, but sort of went just past the post with his shot. But Ingram put out some saves, and then a bit of luck fell our way with the KLP shot. I mean, it was as you said, it was a sweetly taken volley. It was just a bit of a funny sort of circumstance in how it went in. That Wilkes goal as well. I mean, it was good to see him get the goal, but geez, look, if he'd missed that, it would have been a bit awkward, because I feel like Eves was right there for a pretty square pass and a pretty short tap in. So it's a good thing he found the back of the net.
Yeah, look, when he took that extra little touch, I was livid for a split second. And then
I thought he's held it up too long. He's gonna,
rolled it under the keeper, and I was okay with it then. One of those decisions where it's hard to criticize because he put it in the back of the net, but I'm still pretty close to wanting to say, surely at that point you just square it up to the man who's got a real open, fully open net, no defense around him. But
and I think on the highlights I had a look at Eves' reaction when he scored it, and Eves there's like a flicker of disappointment on Eves, because it's like, I was right there for the pass, and then he kind of jogs over and he's happy for the goal. But it's definitely one of those ones where you've got to make sure you put it away, and he certainly did. I mean, I guess the other thing you sort of touched on as well was the formation. It was great to see the 3-5-2. I thought it was so funny to have it happen straight after the discussion on the podcast last time around. Presumably Grant McCann is one of our viewers, and cheers, Grant. It's good to see that you've taken our advice on board. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, seeing Bernard, Greaves, and Jones all in that defense, I thought looked really good, really solid. I don't know. I mean, Elder presumably was out with a precautionary sort of potential sort of resting, I suppose, and that solved the conundrum of where you play Lewis Potter in a 3-5-2. So he played on that sort of left wing back role. I don't know if Elder's back this week, what that means. Maybe KLP starts up top with Wilkes or something like that. But with Smith, I should say. But yeah, look, really positive signs, and it worked quite well.
Yeah, I actually thought with Elder that it may have been to do with the travel that was coming for the international, that maybe he left a little bit earlier, or something like that, just to be able to get in there and I don't know, and train or whatever, or just acclimatise.
Where was our first game? Second game was Japan, wasn't it?
The second one was in Japan. The first one was they played Oman and probably in Qatar, because I think it was supposed to be a home game. So
yeah,
so it's probably not really that far in the grand scheme of things, I guess. But yeah, I'm not. That was my sort of inclination, but maybe there was.
Certainly probably makes sense.
Maybe Arnold just put in a request to say we want to try and get a few days training or whatever to make sure they secure that world record.
Yeah. Did he didn't get any minutes in the end, did he?
Nah.
We're going to talk about it in a bit, but yeah, international duty, but would have been nice to see him against Japan, given how that panned out. But
with how bad the incumbent left back performed.
Yeah. Well, look, we will move on there. We'll talk about the internationals in a second. So we'll do the 3-2-1s for this match. I've given my 3 votes to KLP. I think I'm a bit of a sucker for the goal, or the opening goal, getting the points in that sense. So I've given that to KLP. I thought it was great. Well, it was a well taken goal, and he had a fantastic game as well. And then the player that I've just touched on with Bernard getting the 2 votes from me, had the most clearances in the side, really solid at centre back again. I feel like that back three, that formation, the back three really suits him, and probably Greaves as well, just to have that extra little bit of cover. They're both still quite young and learning, but he certainly didn't put any foot wrong in the game at all. And then Ingram, 4 saves for the game, really kept us in it at some pretty crucial points, and seems to be in the votes just about every week at the moment, really having a strong start to the season.
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms of, I don't think I could even argue. I looked at your votes and I sort of tried to think, and I guess that's the problem. I need to try and make my decision before I look at yours, because I look at, yeah, that's a fair shout, and it's hard to sort of, I look at that and I probably may have ended up with the same sort of players anyway, but I can't really, I look at that and I go, is there anyone who deserves to oust any of those guys? And probably not, but I think what's really, I guess we've been pretty lucky with some of the loan players that we've brought in, like over the last, I don't know, over the last like 5 or 6 seasons. We seem to have mostly those players that have come in from bigger clubs been reasonably decent for us.
Yeah.
Which is and Bernard is exceeding my expectations, I suppose. Not that I knew much about him anyway, but like
Cool.
he's absolutely pushing Greaves and Jones to the limit in that fight for a starting spot in the first team.
Yeah, I mean, considering he was on loan at Salford City last year, I mean, League Two is a fair drop from the Championship. So from that point of view, expectations around him, I as well thought, centre back's a pretty tough position just to step into. So there was a lot of pressure on him if he was going to get first team starts, and he certainly hasn't put a foot wrong in that sense at all. And then one player who I haven't really touched on yet, but 2 starts, 2 wins for the season for Josh Emmanuel as well. May well be a case of, does Coyle get back in the side, or does Emmanuel kind of keep his spot on merit?
Well, isn't that almost how it went the other way?
Yeah.
Emmanuel started because Coyle was out, and then it was.
Did Emmanuel get injured or something last year? I'm trying to think.
I feel like that's sort of what happened, and they switched, and then Coyle came in and performed like exceeding well. Oh, because he came in and he had that suspension, so he couldn't start the first few games.
Yeah.
Emmanuel started, and then he was performing really well. So something must happen. I can't remember.
Coyle got the winner in the EFL Trophy, so maybe it might have been around then that Coyle sort of took over in the league, because it was, from memory, it was that sticky patch that we had in December where I think McCann changed the team a bit and brought Coyle in, and we kind of settled into our rhythm again, and it was just sort of status quo from there. But look, I mean, starts against Preston, starts against Middlesbrough, we get the 2 wins, so pretty good signs for Emmanuel in that sense.
Yeah, I hope he keeps going, because he's a
great player to watch.
Yeah, we know what we get from. I mean, that's what's probably really good about, especially that right back position. Like both of those players, we know what we're going to get. They're really, really consistent and perform at a really high level, which is it's a good sort of depth to have.
Definitely. Well, we'll move on then, and we'll do the triple flashback of the week. It's a reasonably easy one this week, in the sense that, I mean, we've already touched on one of the players, and it is going to be players that we talk about in a second. But I thought this was a good week to do it. Interestingly, when I wrote this question, one of the players hadn't yet received a cap for his country, so I had to amend the answers today to update it from the last time I'd looked at these questions. But the question for the week is, can you name the last 3 players to represent their country while playing for Hull City?
Callum Elder, Josh Magennis.
Correct.
And the third one, I'm not 100% sure on, because I know that Matt Smith got called up to the Wales squad earlier this season, but I don't know whether he played. Because I wasn't following closely enough. Otherwise, I was like, is it all the way back to like Jackson Irvine or something dumb like that?
Yeah, well, yeah. So you've got all 3 there. So it is Elder, Magennis, and Smith. So Smith did play for Wales. It's a really good, because the previous player that I had to take out was Gavin White, who represented Wales last season on loan for us as well. So it is a couple of the loanees make that one a bit more tricky. But I think that's your first 3 for 3. Actually no, there was another one I think that was pretty straightforward. But you getting pretty good with these. I'll have to get a harder one next week for that. But look, I thought it was a good one to do this week as we cover the internationals. So we do have Magennis did start for Northern Ireland, I think, this morning against I can't remember who they played, but I think they lost 2-1 in that one. And then unfortunately, as we were saying, Elder didn't get off the bench for Australia or start either of the games for Australia, which was particularly frustrating given Behic's performance against Japan. And
that's right. Next time.
Not to single him out too much, but both goals reasonably at fault for from his point of view, but gives Arnold a bit to think about next time for Elder as well, I suppose. But yeah, I guess from an internationals point of view, I suppose Elder's probably on his way back to City now and should be pretty fresh and prepared for the weekend's game.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope so. It would be hard to not be fresh. He's been training, but yeah, no minutes from the 2 games for the Socceroos. So um, I guess that then begs the question that we sort of referenced earlier. If Elder is back, then how do we line up? Are we gonna
Yeah.
do we keep the 3-5-2 and play Elder as a wing back, or are we gonna revert back to the 4-3-3?
And it's interesting as well because I hadn't thought of when we're talking about the potential or the current injuries in the squad. I think Magennis was one of the players who was out injured, and he's clearly now fit if he's starting for Northern Ireland. So it means we have a lot of options for those 2 forward spots, and it may well be the case that we just switch back to the 4-3-3 because otherwise we just can't fit in, KLP, Wilkes, Smith, Magennis, Eves, all into those sorts of roles, or coming off the bench to fill those roles. So I'd love to see us line up in the 3-5-2 again, but it may well be that needs must, and we go back to a 4-3-3.
Yeah, look, I don't know. It's hard to say, I guess, because either way, we have an abundance of talent that is not going to get to play football matches at the moment if everybody's fit. So,
Which is a good position to be in, I guess.
yeah,
And it's a weird position to be in given our table position, that you'd almost think that it's a case of, geez, struggling to put an 11 together. But we've actually got a lot of good players and a lot of good positions. It's just what the combination is to unlock the winning formula.
and I guess the question that I have in the back of my mind is how will Honeyman be managed on his second return this season?
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting because we're saying it before his first debut this season of, well, things will be better when we have Honeyman fit and firing, and it still seems to be the case. And I just want to be able to see him sort of showcase his talents in the championship for us and see where we can end up with him in the side.
Yeah, and I think we're all really waiting to see whether he will perform at this level. Because the first time, when he first arrived, there was a bit of a struggle, and so he didn't probably perform at the level we wanted. But we sort of went, well, he's only just arrived and essentially thrust into a losing side. But certainly last season showcased his potential and what he could do. So I think I'm really excited to see over the course of the rest of the season how he can now that he's settled into the club and the team, how he's going to acclimatise himself on the pitch in the championship.
Yeah, certainly. And that's probably a good opportunity to look ahead to that Huddersfield game that we have coming up this weekend. I think they've got 2 wins in their last 5 games, as well as 2 wins in their last 5 games against us. So it's going to be an interesting clash in that sense. They're managed by Carlos Corberan, who took over as manager in July of 2020, arriving from the Leeds under-23s. He's done a reasonable job. I think pre-season or early in the season, I probably would have had them as one of the certainties to go down, or at least certainties to be in the relegation battle. But they've given a good account of themselves. They had a win against Blackburn 3-2 in their last 5 games, so starting to perform pretty well as a squad for probably what their expectations were this season, which is good for them. Makes it an interesting clash for us because it's certainly one of those games sort of in the same ilk as the Middlesbrough, the Blackpool game, where you think this is a really good set of fixtures that we've got at the moment. And in a way, it's probably unfortunate timing of the international break that we weren't able to kind of capitalize on that momentum and positive emotion around the squad and go on and have another match. But hopefully we can sort of galvanize and sort of recapture that spirit and really take advantage of a pretty, achievable fixture in terms of trying to get the win.
Yeah, look, I guess there's positives from having the break when we had it, but also I guess that's the other flip side. Have we ended? Did it interrupt the momentum that we possibly were building? But yeah, look, I think I sort of end up saying the same thing every week in the championship. It's going to be a tough game, but if we do what we what we show what we can, everyone turns up. But I feel like this is a fairly. There's not many games that I think are out of our reach, or that like many teams that we play that I don't have hope that we can get something. So I'm fairly confident. I kind of feel like I lean towards your thing of sticking with the 3-5-2. The old like why change a winning formula. We finally got a breakthrough victory with that. Seemed like we were really dynamic throughout. And for what was, I guess, the first time we've seen it with McCann. So the first time that they've potentially only had, a week's worth of training drills on it before that game, before Borough. Obviously they're professionals and they, know what it's about. But, getting it all together and to get a win first go with it is reasonably impressive sort of a thing. So I would love to see that they've continue to work on that, and like to see that again. I think we've talked about Wilkes being a confidence player. To finally to nab that goal as well will do him the world of good. So I'm fairly confident. I think we will. I think we'll pick up a win. I don't think it'll necessarily be. It's not going to be a convincing barnstorming victory, but like a 1-0 or something like that is absolutely achievable.
Yeah, and it's actually a really good point there that maybe this international break is a blessing in that sense that it gives the squad more time to train. If we are sticking with the 3-5-2, it gives them more time to sort of learn it and gel and figure out the intricacies and all of that sort of thing as well. So could be positive in that sense. And yeah, look, I do think it's a pretty achievable fixture. So I'd be hoping that we can target the 3 points in this one. 1-0, 2-1 sort of victory would be good. Another clean sheet would be great. If it can be achieved. So, yeah, I think it's really good. I mean, I was just looking ahead to the fixtures to come after this. We've got Peterborough Thursday morning as well, so we'll be previewing that in our next episode. But Peterborough, Luton, Coventry, really good form, but still a side that I'd say on their days is a side that we could probably get at and get something against. And look, even West Brom at the moment in the last couple of fixtures have shown that they're not in the best of form. A few doubts around the manager, I think, from the supporters. So who knows what sort of state they'll be in by that point as well. So look, if all of us, if we came out and beat Huddersfield and all of a sudden that's 7 points from the 3 games, that paints a very different picture from where we were a couple of weeks ago. I think especially now Wilkes on the board, KLP starting to find the goals as well, Eves finding the goals as well. So it's starting to look a lot more positive than it was coming into that Blackpool game.
Yeah, and I think that's just sort of the nature of of championship football and of football where you have such a long season, is that even though we had a terrible run where we didn't pick up any points, it doesn't seem to take that long to sort of, if you can turn it around, it doesn't take that long. A couple of key matches, a couple of key moments, and you can sort of turn that momentum and 2 or 3 points or 4 points, and all of a sudden you're in a much better position. 7 points, all of a sudden you're outside of that bottom 3. Another points here and there, and you start just creating or like building a platform to go on for the rest of the season, because there's still plenty of games left to play, plenty of minutes, plenty of goals left to be scored. So I think, despite what's been a pretty rocky start to the season, I'm still very optimistic, for the season as a whole.
Yeah, certainly. And I think I'm just looking at the table. I mean, we're 3 points behind a whole glut of teams in that mid-table sort of bracket. So all of a sudden, I think, you put back-to-back wins together and suddenly it completely changed the dynamics of the season. So, look, it'll be certainly an interesting game to look forward to in that sense. And then, as I said, we've got the Peterborough game midweek after that to really try to capitalize on as well. So lots to look forward to over the next 7 days. But look, thanks for joining me on this one, Dan.
No worries. My only other question is, have you heard anything about Derby appealing their points deduction?
I saw that yesterday. I couldn't quite believe it. I mean, it just like they've appealed, they've whined, they've complained at every sort of turn about the potential penalty. They've dragged their feet, and it just feels like more stalling tactics. I don't really know what sort of they're trying to claim that it's to do with COVID that they've incurred these losses. When you kind of look at the player contracts that they signed and everything like that, and you think, oh, I mean, everyone else is suffering from COVID, and they're not kind of falling under these sorts of potential penalties themselves. So look, there's been a fair bit off the field as well that we could have touched on. I've sort of steered clear of it because I know we've talked about the ownership situation before, but you look at the potential that Mike Ashley might try and buy Derby. There's the guy that wanted to buy West Ham that might be turning his attention to us or to Derby as well. And then sort of ever creeping closer potential for the takeover from the Turkish bid is all going to be very interesting. I think the next month and a half is going to be a very interesting time to see what happens. But at this stage, there's just so much paper talk. It's so hard to know what to take with any certainty, I guess.
It's a wild time in the world in general, and also still in football. I mean, football never disappoints in that aspect, I suppose. It's always some crazy news story going on.
And there might be a certain manager available pretty soon who we wouldn't mind getting back in the dugout as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. And actually, speaking of that, I should say before we head off, we did record another one of our flashback episodes last week where we looked back at the start of the 2012-13 season when Steve Bruce arrived at the club and that sort of journey up to the Premier League began. So it's well worth a listen if you haven't yet had a listen to that. And speaking of Steve Bruce potentially leaving Newcastle, who knows if things could happen all over again.
McCann finally listens to your advice and you're ready to sack him already.
Yeah, look, sorry, Grant. See how we go. But yeah, no, appreciate everyone listening in for this episode and appreciate you for joining me for it, Dan.
Yeah, not a problem. Anytime. I'm always down to talk football.
No worries. Well, thank you to everyone. And we'll be back next week to preview that Peterborough game as well as the other fixture that we have over the weekend, which I've now suddenly lost. The Peterborough and the Luton Town games. We'll be back to preview those next week. But until then,